Hello, Tiger fans. Welcome to your emergency Missouri Tigers football podcast, brought to you by Rockin' Radio. I'm Nate Edwards. You know that guy. That's Quentin Corpuel. We're here to talk to you about the thing that happened, which is three weeks to the day. Missouri finally hired a defensive coordinator. His name is Corey Batoon. Quentin, welcome to your first emergency podcast. How are you doing, man?
I'm well. Thankfully, this is not my first emergency podcast in all capacities. I've done a couple NBA ones when big trades have broken, same with NFL. So I'm a little seasoned, but I've never done a Mizzou one. And I've heard these things can get pretty hectic, especially when a new coach is hired. And especially after it's been, again, 3 weeks it's kind of a long time in terms of searching for a head coach / coordinator. But Mizzou finally got their guy, and we are here to talk about it.
That's right. Literally 3 weeks to the day. 3 Fridays ago, as I was sitting in my basement watching Star Wars, Blake Baker decided to leave, go back home to LSU. So when you tell someone, oh, it's 3 weeks, when you're in the middle of it, it seems like an eternity, especially when you're going through a cycle where Nick Saban, of all people, gets replaced within 2 days. Kalen DeBoer gets replaced in 2 days. Michigan's probably going to fill their spot with an in-house hire. So, you look at this and you go, how do you replace these great coaches so quickly? And yet Mizzou can't find a defensive coordinator, in double that time, let alone triple, quadruple that time. Nathan Hurst and I said this on the show. That's not how Eli Drinkwitz does things. He's pretty methodical. He's very slow. He doesn't tell anybody anything. Which is really nice. So overall, we got the guy, and he comes to us from South Alabama. I don't know how much about South Alabama but we aren't going to tell a 5-year-old to go away. So we know that South Alabama, there she is. South Alabama is an excellent defense, very havocy defense, and that's what Corey Batoon is going to be coming to us from. So, Quentin, tell me what you know about South Alabama while I ask the 5-year-old what she wants me to do for her.
Well, I'm actually going to South Alabama in a few days for the Senior Bowl. So I'm excited to visit their campus, go down to Mobile, as I've learned how that's pronounced in the past few days. But we were talking a little bit before the show about his defensive alignment, which I think we can get into a little bit later. But I talked with Josh and Adine on a podcast a few weeks ago about the fact that I was always a DJ Smith guy, but we were all in agreement that if DJ Smith was the guy, they would have done it pretty quickly. Yeah. And 3 weeks is not very quickly. And so we both figured they were just scouting out their options. Again, as you said, taking their time and really nailing down someone they really liked. And Corey Batoon has one connection to Eli Drinkwitz. They were both, I believe, assistants at Arkansas State.
Yep.
They know each other. And South Alabama had a very good defensive unit under Corey Batoon's watch. I believe they finished top 30, top 25 points allowed, and a few other statistics. But they had good defenses. They were very aggressive, and even dating back to his time at Hawaii. Which I believe, as you said in our little Slack chat, he's the first Mizzou football coach of Hawaiian descent?
I'm assuming he is. I mean, my knowledge goes back to the 90s, but I feel fairly confident. Hawaii is a football crazy town, but I feel like not a lot of native Hawaiians get into the coaching realm, and very few end up at Missouri. So I feel like that's the case. But if anybody wants to fact check me, that's fine.
No, he is good at his job, at least from what the statistics tell us. He is good at his job, had a connection to Drinkwitz. And it was a little interesting because I hadn't heard his name at all in terms of potential hires. We heard a bunch of other names like Jim Leonard, like DJ Durkin was floating around for a little bit. But Corey Batoon was never mentioned, at least from what I've seen. So, but regardless, he's here. He is the defensive coordinator for Mizzou, and he's going to be coaching a unit that's going to look a good bit different from last year.
Yeah. It's funny. At this point, we just need to pull up the Arkansas State coaching staff from 2010 to 2013 and just write all of those names down, no matter what they do. Because Batoon was a special teams coordinator for the Red Wolves in 11, I think is what it was. What did I look up? Yeah, special teams coordinator in 09, 10, and 11. Now he coached defensive backs too, but like his main job was the special teamers. So like, is that who you're going to for your defensive coordinators? But like, it's been, 11 years at this point, 12 years at this point. So everyone kind of evolves in their roles. The thing with Batoon is, there's a lot of notable things, but with South Alabama in particular, they are havoc forward. That's what they like to do. And also from a scheme standpoint, it's tough to tell when you are on a staff, like whose influence is doing what. Did Kate Womack want this thing this way? Did Corey Batoon want it this way? But if you look at South Alabama's depth chart, the interesting thing that sticks out to me anyway at first blush is how they list their defensive line and how they list their linebackers. Most schools, when you look at that stuff, it's going to have like D-line, or maybe they pop it out to like interior lineman or edge rusher, or like maybe they list outside linebacker versus regular like whatever. South Alabama's depth chart, if you look at it, it goes defensive tackle, nose guard, bandit, and then their linebackers are Wolf, middle linebacker, and Stain. Now, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the 3-3-5. It's funny because on our show last week with Hurst, I said that we've done straight man, we've done zone, and we've done, kind of a havoc forward mix, and 3-3-5 is very havoc. It's also a unique alignment. We have not been outside of a 4-down lineman front since 2016 when we tried kind of a hybrid 3-4, 4-3 kind of defense when Barry Odom's first year. So I don't know if this is actually going to take. I don't know if Batoon comes over here and says, all right, 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. That's going to be our base. I don't know. But that tends to tell you havoc forward, like I said. And they have been a top 30 havoc team for the past 3 years. Certainly lower than what Mizzou has been during that time frame, but still, 17, 18% as a season total. That says a lot that you're getting after it. Now, it's not from the defensive line, it's the linebackers and the defensive backs, but still, 18% havoc. I mean, if you're looking to replace Blake Baker and be aggressive, that's kind of what you're looking for, right?
Yeah, and going back to what you said at the beginning about how much of South Alabama's defensive success was because of him or because of other things, that's what I think makes like Coach of the Year and Coordinator of the Year like a super annoying award, because it's very hard to quantify a coach or a coordinator's impact on a team or a unit. But if we're talking about a 3-3-5, yeah, it's something that Mizzou hasn't seen in a little bit. I'm trying to think back to when Mizzou's defensive line has been like the best of D-line Mizzou, and I think of 4 down, like I think of four rushers. So this will definitely be new, especially because you look at the teams that are the last one standing in the college football playoff at the end of the year. Like all of them have really good defensive lines, and all of them usually play with 4 guys up front. So this is definitely going to be interesting, especially considering you look at the depth chart for this year. There's a lot of edge rushers. And if you're playing a 3-3-5, you're emphasizing, not the edge rushers. You're emphasizing linebackers and defensive backs. And I think the thing for me about a coordinator is, can you mold your scheme around the players that you are given and not try to log jam them into something that's already preset? That never usually works out. And looking at their depth chart next year, it's not going to be like last year where you have a loaded defensive line room to where you can get production out of like so many different guys. Like a good bit of them are gone. You look at like Tyron Hopper, who's like a havoc centric scheme. That was perfect for him because he's a really good sideline to sideline linebacker. Blake Baker put him in a great position to succeed by letting him just kind of fly around the field. And then you look at the defensive back room, they had guys who you could send pressure. Like Ennis Rakestraw, I think a big reason why he's getting a lot of first-round buzz in the NFL is because of his willingness to tackle. His open field tackling is super strong. That's not there anymore, along with Chris Abrams-Drain. And so, like, the personnel is going to look different. I still think they can succeed with a havoc-centric scheme. It's just that a lot of the guys that made it successful last year are not going to be there next year. So I'm just curious to see how he blends what he's bringing over from South Alabama and what he is given with Mizzou.
Right. So on the last show, I said that I didn't think this defense was going to be very good, and that's a relative term. But you typically really good defenses, elite defenses are powered by an experienced secondary. Missouri's not going to have that. You're also resetting your linebacking core. I know Chuck Hicks and Tristan Newsom filled in towards the end, but you're resetting there. And really, the sneaky, quiet, successful part of the defense in the past 2 years has been the 4 interior defensive linemen who just rotated in with no drop off. And that was really it. That was the glue that held everything together and let everybody do what else they had to do. So you're resetting most of that. Now you could say, well, this is a perfect time to switch scheme, because you're bringing up a bunch of young guys. Obviously, Joseph Charleston's back. Dalen Carnell's back. Your linebackers are still here. I understand that part, but you have most of your contributors gone. If you were going to switch up how you did something, this would be a good season to do that. There's probably not going to be a lot expected of this defense. There's going to be a lot of new faces. And now, of course, you're adding on to that a new coordinator. So, hey, sure, why not? But to your point, I mean, the secondary is going to be super young. So the fact, the modern college football, you need to have a defense with 5 defensive backs on the field. Whether you're a straight 4-3 like Iowa or a 3-3-5 like San Diego State, and that's your thing, at some point you are going to have 4 down linemen and 5 defensive backs as a package that you run out there, regardless of what you run. So you can't escape it, is my point. But at the same time, if you have 10 defensive ends, edge rushers on the field or on your roster, and you're going to switch your scheme up, like, are you going to move one to the outside linebacker? I mean, that's got to be someone who is, just not obviously not a tower, but like got some girth, but also got some speed. And, Johnny Walker and Joe Moore, they're both 6'2", 6'3", 240. Zion Young is 6'6", 265. You're not bumping him out. He's probably going to be, hand in the dirt. Austin Firestone is almost 260. Darius Smith is 6'5", 240. You got some guys like Ja'Kai Lane or Serene Tunkara who are a little shorter, but like it kind of feels like the defensive ends that we have are probably more inclined to have their hand in the dirt as a traditional pass rusher. I'm not sure if you can bounce any of those guys out to like an outside linebacker type. So then you're like, well, who do we have as linebackers? And boy, bad news, guys, because it's Chuck Hitz, it's Tristan Newsom. You did bring in Corey Flagg, who is a havoc guy who's going to replace Tyron Hopper. But outside of that, Nick Rodriguez, Brian Huff in their first year, Brayshawn Littlejohn, who just redshirted. We're not sure how he's like. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. So I don't know if they're actually going to change or not. It's when you look at your, what you have versus what you like to do, the best coaches are going to, cook with the ingredients that they have. But it is a question as far as what Corey Batoon wants to do versus how he can do it versus we're going to be able to let him do with the pieces that we have.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think a good point you brought up a few minutes ago is how many like really good interchangeable defensive tackles that Mizzou has had over the past couple of seasons. Like they just ate up space on the interior, and blocking that for a whole football game is really tiring, especially because like Jaden Jarnigan, Christian Williams, like Josh Landry, like Realist George Jr., they were so big. Like, and that's just
consistent too.
And very, very consistent. And it's not like it was 1 or 2 guys carrying the load. It was 4 or 5 guys. And that is a rarity. Like that is a privilege. And that is, again, a big reason why Mizzou had so much defensive success last season, is just because they were able to, make the life of the opposing offensive line very, very difficult. And at least looking at on paper heading into this season, they don't have a bunch of guys you can interchange. Like Darius Robinson, they could kick out.
Yep.
I just don't know if there's another Darius Robinson on this team. So
probably not.
Yeah, that's going to be very difficult to replace. So there's just a lot of uncertainty. And I think once spring ball comes around and like summer practices start and we see these guys move and we see where these guys line up, then we'll get a better answer. But for now, there's just a lot of uncertainty. So I don't want to make any bold claims just yet.
Definitely not. I mean, sometimes you can read the tea leaves. It depends on how frisky the SID is. But if he goes out and lists, the linebackers as specific types of linebackers, like a bandit or an LB or a bandit, or specifically calls out edge versus D line, like that might give you a little bit of an insight of where they're going to go. But it's just, there's too many factors to your point. Too many new faces, a brand new guy. And we haven't even mentioned this, Batoon is a safety coach by trade. So very much like Blake Baker, he will, coordinate the defense and run the safeties. they need to hire a defensive line coach, probably an edge rushing coach. And because Kevin Peoples has gone to LSU. Now, does that mean that they go and say, oh, well, looking at what we have right now, we could just, we'll just say, Al Davis, now you coach the entire line and figure it out somewhere else. But I don't think that's going to be the case. They're probably looking for an actual defensive end coach. And last year's defensive ends at, where did he go? Where was he? Was at South Alabama. There we go. God, yeah. Been a weird day. Defensive ends at South Alabama were not very good. They were very young. They were not very good. So you're probably not looking there to get your guy. I don't know where you go. I do not have a Rolodex of defensive end coaches off the top of my head. Maybe Eli Drinkwitz does. Maybe we'll just go back to Arkansas State's staff from 2011 and find the guy. But I don't know. That's probably the first thing that Coach Batoon has to do is go find himself an edge rushing coach.
Yeah, that'd be really good, especially because, again, there are so many of them and they're also very young. And that's where, again, we find it very hard to quantify how much even a position coach has his impact on a room. Since Mizzou has so many of them, I think, I totally agree in that. I think it would be a very good idea to find a really quality one, especially because, again, there's so many of them.
And who he gets, that's also probably going to be telling on scheme and how they imagine that this defense is going to be constructed based off of who they hire and from where.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a whirlwind, man. It's been 3 weeks, and Eli Drinkwitz likes his spring games early, so he can just focus on the portal after that. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. And spring doesn't really give you a whole lot of storylines. They're pretty tight to the chest on releasing information there too. So man, it's a weird time. It's a lot of flux. And for a team that's been pretty active as far as making moves that indicate making a run for the playoff, a lot of questions on the defensive side. That's not a bad thing. They can be answered, but you have a ton of questions. And I don't know. It feels weird. Yeah,
I love when we're here and our job is to analyze, and our best answer is, I don't know. Can you imagine waking up one morning and just looking at the weatherman on TV and he's like, yeah, could rain. We'll see. I'm not totally sure. That's a little unsettling if I were watching, but I don't have anything. It'll just take time for us to get answers. But what I like is what we said at the very beginning, is what you said at the very beginning. This was totally kept under in-house. We heard nothing about Corey Batoon. And I like the teams that I follow and I support, not letting stuff get out. And under Eli Drinkwitz, that has totally been the case. They have not let a ton of stuff get out. So I think that indicates a healthy team environment. I don't know about you, but I am personally a big fan of when leaks don't really happen. Yeah, I do too. So we got all spring to figure this out. We got all summer to figure out, and we will figure it out with you as we go along. But the analysis doesn't stop here. The 5-year-old is back once again. So we're going to go ahead and it's time for us to go.
Time for a snack, baby. We got no time to talk about this anymore. So that is going to be our show for today. Thanks for tuning in. Quentin, thank you for the time. You all, thank you for coming in for this emergency podcast. 5-year-old, thank you for not sitting in the living room watching TV. MIZ, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, just click the subscribe button below. And you can find this podcast through the Apple Podcast app or for iPhone, or the Google Podcast app for Android, or whatever app you use to listen to your podcast. We are also available on Spotify. Just search for Rock M Radio. And if you like other sports, Fans First Sports Network is a podcast network that has coverage of all other teams, Major League Baseball, MLS, NFL, whatever you want to listen and read about. It is a great network full of really fantastic podcasts. So look them up and subscribe to any and all of those podcasts. Rock M Radio will be back with more episodes coming soon. Thanks.